on to actual football things. I'll let Cole kick this off. Everybody has a hot take with this. I don't know if we'll get super hot take-ish or not on this. We kind of talked about it a second beforehand, but UGA's issues, driving, continuing to have driving infractions, driving-related incidents, had a couple more last week. You can look at the stats. Everybody makes the funny memes and the graphics of, this many arrests driving related versus this many wins since December of this year or whatever, right? Like, just thoughts, Cole. I'll let you kick it off on what's going on at UGA. It's a big deal, but like, how big of a deal is it? Just kind of give us your opinion.
Well, I thought that it was actually a joke when you saw Nitro Tuggle arrested for speeding. Literally, I thought that was the perfect Mad Lib that somebody in the world of college football came up with, because how could you say Nitro at the University of Georgia driving in a sentence and not piss yourself laughing? That is just where I started. But you go into more detail. He was one of 2 arrests. Both have been suspended indefinitely from the team. One has been kicked off the team, the Ra Thomas incident. You also had the Colby Young incident. He is now reinstated with the team. And a bunch of other things have gone on since December of 2023. Everything that I have heard and spoken to around the complex, around the facility, they have done their due diligence to bring in the right people to try to steer the ways of good behavior. And unfortunately, nothing is working. Nothing. It's not like Kirby Smart is sitting here and saying, I'm too busy looking for my next 5-star offensive tackle that I'm going to turn to a first-round pick and better my odds of winning a national championship to care about what goes on in Athens PD departments when they have to call me at 3 a.m. It's not like that at all. They have brought in the right people. They have had conversations. They have met with players. They have had certain speakers come on in and explain how life can drastically alter in a moment. And unfortunately, it's not sticking. And so there is a culture problem internally with the University of Georgia. But here's the problem. Number one, it's not like Kirby hasn't done everything possible. There's only one more thing he can do, which leads me to point number 2. You have to be willing to part ways with several of your premier players and not just give them a slap on the wrist to show, if you mess up at this institution, an institution that is known for not just a winning culture, but a certain brand and identity when we're around the community. In Athens, Georgia, the red and black is strong. It's nowhere near what the Atlanta Falcons red and black is like a blip on the radar compared to what you have in Athens, GA, for these players, for the impact, for what this game is all about. And you're not willing to make that sacrifice. So if you're Kirby Smart and you're saying, if you continue to make mistakes, if you continue to put us in a situation where we are only talked about in a negative light, you are no longer welcomed on this program. But Kirby has to be willing to hold that type of accountability to everyone, including the 5-star tight end that he just brought in from Duluth, Georgia, because of that is somebody that he believes is an integral, impactful feature for this team moving forward. Whether it be a 5-star offensive tackle that was waiting in the wings to start for 2 years. He goes out and he gets a DUI driving 115 miles an hour. You have to hold them to the same standard, because you're not watching as those players are the ones that are getting in trouble. And maybe it's because they're not the ones getting in trouble, but the accountability from those guys needs to step on up, and they need to be willing to say, listen, do you want to help this team or do you want to hurt this team? Because so far, all we're getting is bad breaks on certain calls and bad calls off the field that puts us in the front headline for all negativity, which is something we don't need. We haven't been to a national championship in 2 years. We have a 12-team college football playoff, and here comes Texas rolling on in, and people are talking about them to be the next big-time team in the country in this conference from day one. So leaders have to step on up, but Kirby has to make the decision. What is more important, winning a title and then in the offseason dealing with 6 or 7 arrests, several phone calls from Athens County Police Department at 6:30 in the morning, and being willing to say, hey, I'll throw you off the team because of you were a backup anyways and you weren't going to mean anything, or actually hold standard and say, listen, we may go 9-3 this year, but that's because we had to let go of 6 dudes that we thought would get us to an 11-1 season. They didn't fit the identity of our culture. They didn't fit the identity of this program. We cannot have a bad egg bringing us down. And by the way, we're Georgia, damn it. We got to start acting like it.
Now, quickly, UGA fans or fans of any college football team, make sure that you're remembering Alumni Hall when you're gearing up for spring football or spring sports all over UGA athletics. Baseball team, red hot. Softball team, crushing things right now. CFA 15, that's CFA for College Football Addiction 15, will save you 15% at Alumni Hall, either located on the Oconee Connector or at alumnihall.com. ADMITS.com. They have the largest and best selection of officially licensed game day gear brands like Nike, Champion, New Era, and more. Dog fans, Alumni Hall is your official fan shopping destination, and I appreciate them for their support on this video. Tom?
Yeah, I think the entire situation, it just makes me sad. And I hit exactly what Cole said, and that this feels like a culture issue, period. This is something that you don't want to blame it entirely on this new era of college football, college athletics, where kids are getting paid, because it's been going on before that, unfortunately, at Georgia. But we are in an era now where you have kids that are coming in and they're making more money than they ever thought imaginable. And I was so encouraged. We were joking about Dion and Fran the other week about possibly doing an inter squad scrimmage for the spring game. And you openly heard them talking about education for young people at this point in their lives. And Fran Brown, the program, I believe, is called Syracuse 60, and trying to help football players get a job in something outside of football within 60 days of them graduating, something like that. So phenomenal perspective on what this is. And it's the thing that is a really scary point in time for a lot of these kids. And there's the element of agents being involved. There's the element of the money. There's the entertainment aspect of it. You have all these things at your disposal. It's not to say that college football players in the past haven't had these types of opportunities. It was just quieter. It was under the table in a lot of different respects. And it just worries me for the future of these young people, because these are 18 to 22-year-olds trying to figure out life, and somebody hands you $500,000. How are you going to behave? Do you believe you are invincible at that age? Everybody does. Okay, amplify that times 1,000, because you're playing for one of the premier brands in college football. So it breaks my heart. And I think the unfortunate thing is that this was, something in the news cycle a handful of days ago. And it already, we were talking about like, oh, should we even bring this up? Will it be old news? And that's the unfortunate thing, is that it is old news at this point. And this happens every year. And we just move past it because people only care about wins and losses and touchdowns and that sort of thing. And that's my overall takeaway from this thing, is that it's just heartbreaking. And I really do hope that the University of Georgia and the football program, Kirby Smart, continue their efforts. As Cole was saying, it's not for lack of trying, but this also comes down to the players that are there and the veterans reinforcing like, hey, we've got to get our act together, because if you want to be a decent human being and not negatively affect your life, the lives of others unnecessarily and recklessly, then this has to change. And I can even speak to watching as a Philadelphia Eagles fan. Jalen Carter might not have ever had the opportunity of the NFL because of similar off the field issues. And because he walked into a situation in Philadelphia with a strong veteran nucleus, I know for a fact those people around him have provided bumpers for him, so to speak, of like, hey, we're going to keep you in check. It's unfortunate that that has to happen at a professional level. And let's be honest, this is a professional level now at college sports. It's been that way for a while, under the table. But gosh, I just, the whole thing breaks my heart. And I just don't want to see more lives altered by this, lives lost potentially because of this. You never know what can happen. And it's just something where if the players within that Georgia football team, past and present, come together to address this, it can improve. But it's sad that it's a culture issue. And it's really sad that we're just going to talk about it now. It happened last week, and we're just going to keep on moving on. And this is something that like really matters in the grand scheme of things.
Do you remember in the movie Remember the Titans, where Gary Bertier throws his teammate and his best friend Ray off the team for not making a block?
Yeah.
Like, that's got to be the attitude of some of these veterans in the locker room whenever you're seeing the people getting arrested for driving 113 in a school zone. Like, that kind of has to be. And I know that it's just a movie and it's fake, and no way in hell did Gary Bertier, an All-American from the state of Virginia, throw a player off the team over anybody on the coaching staff. But what I'm saying is that that's the type of attitude you have to have if you are one of these veterans in the locker room. And I get it. Culture, you can win with bad culture. I mean, TriStar brings this up in the comment section. You can win with bad stuff that happens off the field. But the problem is Tom brings up the fact that this is old news. It's not old news, though, because the problem is it's old news for the moment. And you know that new news in the same room, in the same building, in the same city is going to be coming out, because at this point, if you give a mouse a cookie, he's going to want a glass of milk. If one arrest record's coming on up, a second one is probably not that far behind. And unfortunately, until there is that finite, consistent identity of a culture that is implemented by the players and brought down by the coaches, and everyone is on the same page, you're going to continue to see this. And so at some point, it is up to the players, it is up to Kirby, but you have to be willing to have that serious conversation. Is it worth getting rid of a 5-star toxic offensive tackle? And it may hurt your team, and you may end up giving up the most sacks on the left side in the Kirby Smart era if everyone in the building realizes, if I mess up, if I act the exact same way as him, and I'm nowhere near as valuable, I'm off the team for good.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, that kind of one-time example, but, again, what we don't really know this, but what is that? And this is very what do you call it? Rhetorical. Like, what is that punishment right now that kids are looking at? Because I mean, I've heard you talk about it, I've heard Pate talk about it, I've heard other people talk about, like, listen, Pate even said the other night, like, I know what they're doing, and it would make your jaw drop, like the punishment that they're given. I mean, who's to even say that being kicked off the team would really, deter this, right? Like, I'm not anti, punishment, but like we got a lot of punishment for different laws that people break in this country, and people still break the laws, And so who's to say that if Kirby did institute like a zero tolerance, that it would even change things? That's where I think it's almost, I agree so much with what you guys are saying. It's almost not even the coaches instituting a zero. It's the players, man. I spoke with, and I know this is a very minor type thing, but I mean, I've spoken with different players at FSU when they weren't terrible. And they've said, like, no, man, like Jimbo didn't have to get on us. And, Dylan Gibbons, who transferred from Notre Dame, Atkins didn't have to get on us. We did that because we were leaders. Like, we got the guys in check. And so that's to me where, yeah, I mean, I kind of agree with you. Like, Kirby should make an example of somebody in a big time way and see if that cures it, because whatever he's doing isn't working. But I don't even know if that's going to work. Like, not to be negative about it, but I mean, at the end of the day, it's a negative situation. But it almost, if it doesn't come from the players, I don't know that it's ever going to change. I don't know that it's ever going to be any different. Even if he does kick somebody off tomorrow for something they do, we'll see.
Nothing really else I can say on that.
Yeah. So we did the whole thing without any too crazy hot takes on that. So, hey guys, thanks for watching this clip from our live show of the Power 2. We don't ask for a lot on these videos, but I do want to let you know quickly, we're on all your favorite social media apps, X, Instagram, TikTok, and of course, you can find us wherever you find your favorite podcasts like Apple and Spotify. Check us out there in case you miss an episode here on YouTube. You won't miss any of our content on college football addiction on those platforms as well.